This is Gilly, and this is Gilly's and Titus's roadmap to success. Sit. Nice. Now, they were adopted as a pair. I was told, or in my notes, I got a little confused. I thought they were siblings. They're not siblings, but they were adopted out together, but they don't get along. And so the guardians are going to kind of contemplate whether or not that having them together isn't necessarily the healthiest thing for the dogs and the guardians. Now, basically, I went through the session as if we're going to keep them. So one of the things first things we talked about is exercise. Both dogs are probably under-exercised, under-stimulated. So we went over some creative ways of exercising the dog, the doggy stairmaster. Now, again, it's the first thing I'm saying, but that should be one of the last things that you do because of the repetitive, and check with your vet to make sure they're okay with that. Playing tug of war is a great way to burn energy with the dog. And I like to do it with like a start and stop. So I have the little rope deal. Like this. I kind of tease the dog, and as soon as they take it, I say nice. We tug, 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 and when I'm ready to stop, I reach in my treat pouch, hold out a treat to the dog's nose. As soon as they let go, I say nice, and I put the in, tell the dog to sit, let that energy level calm down. When it calms down, take, and then we go back to playing tug of war a little bit. Nice. That's capturing. We're not quite ready for that yet. So the idea is, do you like to play tug of war too? Not so much. Tug of war is a good way to burn energy. We also, although I didn't do it here before, I'll do it right now. So we can also introduce scent games. And so we want to come up with a cue that means to search. So hunt, search, find it, booty, treasure, any of those words come in that you guys like?
Hunt, probably.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do is, because I'm pretty sure she's going to go look for it when I throw it, I'm going to say the word hunt as I throw it. So I say hunt. Nice. I say nice when she licks it up. Then she comes back to me, and this time I have two treats, and I say hunt, nice, nice. So every time she licks it up, and so first I throw one treat and say nice, hunt as I throw it, and say nice, nice when she picks it up. Then I throw two treats, hunt, nice, nice, and eventually work up to 5 or 6 treats. So now what I'm doing is I'm calibrating. Hunt means look for treats on the floor. So then eventually when she goes outside or she's in her kennel, I can hide 5 treats that she really likes, and I say hunt, then she's like, holy cow, and she starts searching, looking for the treats. Using a dog's nose is very draining of energy. That's more mental stimulation. Google scent games. There's a lot of different versions of scent games, and don't be freaked out if it talks about bringing dead animals in your house. You don't have to use a cadaver. Let me see. This is a lick mat. So the dogs beef, so they really aren't around each other. And she was injured to the point where she had to be on a restrictive movement for a while because of injuries from that. So the Guardians were working with somebody in the behavior department of the Humane Society, who actually, ironically, I was speaking to earlier today. And so I liked a lot of the things that she was doing with the dogs. I'm just basically adding to it. So these are lick mats. So if we smear peanut butter on it, put one here. Gilly's normally behind there, and so Titus is out here. He's probably laying on the carpet, licking this thing, looking at her. She's in there on the carpet there, looking at him. Licking releases endorphins, makes them both feel good. They're practicing a communal behavior that is good and positive. We're keeping them preoccupied and releasing endorphins. So it's really a great positive thing. The Humane Society behavior person has them essentially doing pair treating and parallel walking. But on the walks, I don't think the walks are as effective. I concur with everything that she went over, but we can't do it if the dogs are barking at each other, which it sounds like they are. And so then they're just practicing an unbalanced behavior. Now, what you might do is try to do that parallel walking, keep on increasing the distance. One of you might be across the street and over here, but I think there's some jealousy and some issues with dynamics with who's with who and things along those lines. So I recommend the Guardians go out and walk the dogs at the same time, but separately, just to start establishing good behavior patterns of walking without the added pressure of reacting to the other dog. So we're going to watch the video above, and I would use the same techniques for both dogs to the point where the dogs are checking in with you, they're listening to you, you can get them to sit, and when you get to that point and they're practiced listening and walking in a balanced way, then we can start bringing them together. I shouldn't even say the word balance because that means a trainer that punishes. We don't do that. But then eventually, and a great place to do this would be go to a big park. So you can have as much distance between you as you need to, and there's a lot of stuff for them to sniff. That sniffing is a distraction, so instead of focusing on the other dog, they're sniffing. And again, that's why if we take them out separately, get them paying attention to us and letting them sniff, then they're practicing going on a walk without being reactive. And after doing that for a couple weeks, then maybe once a week we take them to a park somewhere, preferably on a day that the park's not going to be full of a bunch of other dogs. And then we just go ahead and walk them parallel, and we kind of walk them almost at a triangle. So eventually our goal is to gradually get them closer and closer, but it might take several practices before we get to that. And if they have any growling, staring, grumbling, that's a prelude to them exploding. We want to avoid that. One of the things we're looking for in dog behavior modification is them to go a certain period of time without the negative behavior or unwanted behavior. And so in these guys, since they bark at each other on walks, I would want to set that as a goal, but not doing that on a regular basis, because I don't think it's going to be helpful for the dogs or the humans. But eventually we do want to get there, because I think that will be very beneficial. Oh, you are going to chew the rope. All right. So let me see. We also talked about Kongs filled with peanut butter. I gave the Guardian some freeze-dried beef liver dust. Since she is not as into peanut butter as Titus is, put the peanut butter on there and sprinkle a little bit of that dust on top of it. She'll be pretty interested, because the freeze-dried beef liver is the treat that she really likes. Let me see. We could also do training is a great way to burn energy as well. And that's something you can also teach the dogs to do certain things, where we could maybe do some training with them together, but behind a barrier or with some distance, so that way, and you can even use your deck right there. So I don't know how much, you don't have a ton of room there right there, but if you have one dog on the other side of the glass and one dog here, the barrier helps them know that they can't get to each other, but they can still see each other. And so we have them practice being together without reacting and doing circles or whatever the activity is. That helps them practice being together without being reactive. And it's, as weird as it sounds, that's something that we need to do. Now, sometimes, and I don't like to tether a dog too much, because that tension on a leash can create some anxiety. But in some situations, if you don't have something like this set up, you could actually tether, as long as it's secure, one leash to something over here, one leash to something over there. So you know physically the dogs cannot get to each other. That will help the humans feel psychologically a little bit more comfortable and not contribute to the action. And then we give them bully sticks or cow kneecaps or tracheas or no hides or whatever it is. So they're actually practicing chewing on those things. It relieves some tension, chewing does. It releases endorphins, and they're doing something that we like together without growling or targeting each other. Also, I'd like you to kind of pick and choose your battles when they're going to be together. Make sure you're exercising them first. Make sure it's a time when they're both relaxed. If they're both full of beans, that's a horrible time to get them together. So you want to try to get them together as much as possible in times when they're set up for success, where they're not targeting each other, growling at each other, or any of those things, and build on it, but don't get greedy. And we all get greedy. It's much better to have 100% success for 5 minutes than to go 55 minutes with 54 minutes being good and the last minute being growling or barking. It's going to really invalidate a lot of the other work we went. And if you go slowly, eventually you'll build more and more of that into it. Let me see. Lick mats or snuffle mats, excuse me. I'd like to have them be fed out of snuffle mats. Right now they're fed out of a slow feeder. Well, one of them is. Titus just kind of gave up on it. The snuffle mat has the benefits of a slow feeder by slowing it down, because they can't get all the food at once, but it also makes them work for their food, and they're using their scent, so it's a draining of energy. So because the dogs are currently kind of quasi-free fed, what I recommend doing is get them to the point where they're eating their food out of the bowl properly when we feed them. It's not ethical to withhold from food from dogs, but it is okay to put a condition. So you need to eat when I'm telling you to eat. So if they have to be on medication or something, and it's the regularity, like I mentioned earlier off camera, is very comforting for dogs that are anxious. Knowing what to expect and when to expect it can be comforting and give them some confidence. So I'd put the food in the bowl, invite the dog to come over and eat. You might eat a couple bites of something first to let him know kind of we're in meal time. Then invite him, and the dog comes over and sniffs the bowl and walks away. Pick up the bowl. As soon as they walk away, dump it empty. Not, oh, bad dog, you're not getting any food. We just dump it and it goes away, and the empty bowl stays on the floor, so the dog recognizes that bowl is empty, it's empty, it's empty. Holy cow, there's food in there. And so feed them at least twice a day, give them an opportunity to eat, and eventually they'll start eating. If it goes longer than 3 days without eating, let me know, but usually that means somebody's cheating in the house or they're finding food elsewhere. But eventually hunger becomes your ally. And then they're eating when you ask them to eat. They can anticipate that, and then we can transition from that point to using a snuffle mat. So now they're working for their food, we're getting some extra stimulation and exercise, and that's going to be beneficial. We also talked about incorporating situations where the dog have to practice a little bit of obedience, for lack of a better word, to do what they want. Kind of Premax. The Premax principle means that a less desirable behavior earns me a more desirable behavior. They're kenneled. So if they're in the kennel, I would go to the kennel, and before I reach for them or do anything else, tell them to sit. If they sit, then I start reaching for the handle. And I'd probably at first just if they sit, I would just let them out. But eventually you can do a microcosm, what I mentioned at the door, we break down the thing into small individual steps. So I tell the dog to sit. If it sits within 2 seconds of the first and only time I say it, the guardians here both have a tendency to repeat words. So say it once and don't offer extra sugar or show you have a treat, just say it. And the dog does what you want, then I start reaching for the handle. As soon as the dog gets up, I pull my hand back. Now that is a negative punishment a little bit, but that's okay because we want to have them develop a little bit of self-restraint. And then tell them to sit. If they don't sit, just wait. As soon as they sit down, reach a little bit, pull your hand back. And if you're going like this and you're pulling back as the dog gets up, then we don't want to keep on, that will create frustration, that negative punishment. So if the door handle is here, I might tell the dog to sit, it sits, I might go like this much and then give it a treat. And then this much and give it a treat. So I'm rewarding it for staying a sit, but if I reach all the way, they anticipate getting released and they get up and the excitement level gets higher. So I'm going to beat them to the punch just a little bit. And for some dogs, it's like, that's the only movement I can do. Make your movement as small as you need to where you can do the movement and then give the dog a treat. Again, that's called a precedent. So my hand moving a little bit towards the handle means I'm going to get a treat. And eventually you get to the point where you're jiggling the handle, pull back and give them a treat, jiggle it even more, give them a treat, open the door a little bit, close it, give them a treat. Eventually you open it all the way and the dog's like, who's giving me a treat, man? And so that's the power of positive dog training. We're rewarding and motivating the dog for doing the thing that we want. And we're breaking it in a small enough step where they can digest it. And then they feel proud about it. They're good. They're happy that they're doing it. You're happy that they're doing it. You feel pride because your dog is now developing some self-control. And it's not hard. You don't need to use the prong collar and the shock collar and all the stuff that the guardians here were fortunate enough to stay away from. Unfortunately, a lot of people use those little punishment-based methods. And these sort of dogs, it would have made a situation much, much, much worse. So I concur with my colleague at the Humane Society about that one for sure. All right, so let me see. Scent games, try to incorporate 2 or 3 of those for each dog, and you can do those in different rooms. You can also get the Omega Paw treat ball is the one, Omega Paw Tricky Trainer treat ball, I think is what that thing is called. But there's a whole bunch of different puzzles. You got one in there. Sometimes the puzzle's a little bit too hard. So sometimes those holes have like 4 tabs. Sometimes you might need to pull 1 or 2 of those tabs out and let Titus work on it and make it really easy. And then after he gets used to it, then we only pull 1 of the tabs out and eventually no tabs. And he's got to work hard, but he knows how to do it. It's kind of why I don't play guitar. My dad gave me a guitar with the action was this high. And I'm like, it's hard to play, Dad. He goes, but if you can play that, you can play anything. Guess what? I do not play guitar. But if he gave me an electric guitar, it was really easy. I might have been able to be sloppy, but enjoyed it and then carried that over into a habit or a behavior pattern. Okay, we also talked about, let me see. Let me put the bow on the exercise. What I want the guardians to do is make a list of physical exercise, mental stimulation, and then try to work those into their daily schedule so the dog's getting that mental exercise, mental stimulation or physical exercise every 2 to 4 hours. They're probably closer to the 2 hours because they're higher energy dogs and they're young. But if you can get proactive about their exercise, and also before a walk, get some exercise. Before training, get some exercise. Before guests come over, or anything that's going to be stressful for them, exercising them first. They just need 10 minutes to recover before you go on a walk or whatever it is. But that's really going to be beneficial. So don't be afraid to do that and try to come up with a rhythm of alternating between physical exercise, mental stimulation, physical exercise, mental stimulation throughout the day. Okay, we also talked about the importance of rules and structure. A lot of times we have rescue dogs, we feel like rules are mean, and I don't want to be mean to these rescue dogs, so I'm going to remove all rules. For a lot of rescue dogs, that makes them feel unnerved because there's no structure. And so they kind of get the impression like, I've got to defend the territory, and I've got to correct the other dog, and all the rest of that stuff. So having rules does not make you mean. It actually helps the dog practice some self-restraint and self-control. So maybe teaching the dog to stay on the dog bed when you guys are eating a snack or when you're in the kitchen preparing a meal. And so I do the same sort of thing. So if I'm eating a snack, that's going to be too hard for the dog to not come over to me. And I don't want to punish the dog. So I might just throw a treat on the dog bed. The dog gets off the dog bed, throw another treat, keep on doing that until the dog lingers on the dog bed. Then I might have somebody go over and bring me a plate without any food on it. And then I throw the dog a treat. And I pick up the fork and stab on the empty plate and put the fork down and throw the dog a treat. So there's no smell, there's no reason for the dog to come to us. As a matter of fact, if I stay here, treats come to me. And then eventually we could microwave some roast beef and put it there and cut up in little pieces. I cut it and I send it, give a treat. Don't ever give the dog the people food because that's going to make him want to come to you. But you work up to the point where you're eating a real meal and the dog is content to stay on the dog bed because you eating the meal means it's going to rain treats over here. Look for opportunities to help them practice a little self-restraint, self-control, sitting in the kennel before you open it, using those premacs, the premac principle I talked about. So go to the door, tell the dog to sit. One time. The dog has 2 seconds to sit. If it doesn't sit within 2 seconds, sit down at your kitchen table, wait a minute. Then when the dog gets, after a minute, go back and tell the dog again, sit. Don't say, can you sit? Just sit. If the dog doesn't sit, I sit down this time for 2 minutes. Next time I sit down for 4 minutes, then 8 minutes. But boy, as soon as I say sit and the dog sits, that door flies open. Eventually the dog will sit at the door to say, please open the door. And then we open the door for him. I went over off camera a ritual of going out the front door. Right now the dog likes to go to it's a double door, and the dog goes to the side of the door that opens inward, so the dog's going to have to move. So what I'd recommend is just practice that. Put the dog on a leash, grab some high value treats, walk over there with the dog on your right side, tell it to sit against the door that doesn't open, give it a treat, walk away, and repeat that several times without ever opening the door or touching the door, and condition the dog to go sit at this place means I'm about to get treats. And then after you've done it enough, when you're going for a walk, you can do that. And then the dog is calm when we're opening the door because it doesn't recognize we're necessarily going out for a walk. Also, don't be afraid to do that rapid fire treating. If the dog is ever not listening to you, stop, sit, yes, or sit, nice, boom, take the step, sit, nice, yes, take a step to the side. So do that, like try to do as many treats of the simplest cue that you can do in 10 seconds. And the dog is all of a sudden not paying attention to anything but you. And then take a step towards the door, stop, sit, treat, stop, sit, treat. Go to the door. As soon as you exit the door, stop, sit, and follow the instructions I went over above. But exercising them ahead of time sets them up for success, helping them practice so they're not crazy. I'm not going to use the curse words, but they're not bouncing off the walls and then go to the door. That's going to make it easier for them to pay attention. So let me see. I'll also sit before I put the leash on you. And again, if the dog gets too excited for the leash, pick up the leash and then put it down and then, tell the dog to sit. It sits, pick up the leash, put it down and give it a treat as long as it stays sitting. If you pick it up and the dog gets up, put it in a sit, reach for the leash, don't touch it, and then give the dog that treat. Same thing I talked about with the dog bed. So you can use that same sort of thing. There's something called a relaxation protocol, which kind of shows you how to do that, but you can do it for any activity that there is. So the more opportunities that you have through regular routine activities where the dog has to do something first to get what they want, helps them practice some self-control, more respect for you, keeps them in balance, and it makes them feel good about themselves because they know what's coming next. They can expect that and anticipate that. I'd also like to see the guardians trying to train the dogs. Right now, one dog knows about 4 cues and the other one knows about 6 cues. I would love to see you guys teaching them a new cue a week for the next 2 months. So week 1, Guardian A teaches both dogs, teach them separately when they're nice and calm, exercise them first and all that, and then teach them, maybe bang you're dead. And then all week long, you want to go outside, bang you're dead. You want food, bang you're dead. You want to go to the couch, bang you're dead. And then by the end of the week, you say bang, and the dog's like, I'm dead. And then the next week, then you teach rollover, which is kind of use the similar principles. And wanted to go outside and roll over. So we're going to take turns, and the dog's going to start seeing the human help them accumulate new skills, which helps them feel a little bit more calm, more confident because they have more skills. It helps the dogs practice a little bit of discipline because they have to execute the cue, and also gives the humans different ways to distract the dogs before they're going to get in trouble. I can ask you to do a hurricane or a rollover or play dead or whatever the case may be. Let me see. We also talked about petting with a purpose is what I like to call it. So that's petting the dog for a reason. So if the dog comes up and paws at you or nudges you, it's telling you what to do. Instead of you petting them, you tell them to sit. If they sit, you pet them. You only say it once. They have 2 seconds to comply. If they don't, pull out the newspaper, read, watch TV, make out with your partner, whatever you want to do. You do what I want and you get a reward. It's super duper easy. If you do anything else, more power to you. I'm doing on my own thing. And then the next time the dog is a little bit more motivated to listen to you. Now, use the watchword of paycheck. If you come in the room, you suspect someone's petting a dog and it's standing, you probably didn't ask to sit. Paycheck, and you stop petting, tell the dog to sit, even if you did it right. Stop, don't argue. Sit. If the dog sits, pet it on the chin and tell your partner, I did it right, but thanks for reminding me, babe. I do forget to pet without a purpose. Now, the other side of that is capturing, or what I like to refer to as passive training, which is observing the dog doing the activity that you want, marking the behavior, and then rewarding them within 2 seconds, but only when they do it on their own. So if you're watching TV, the dog walks up to me, I'm going to say nice and pet it. It comes and sits at me, nice and pet it, lays down, nice and pet it, drops a bone, nice, pet the dog or give it a treat. What we're doing is just celebrating the things the dog does that we like. Remember, good attention from dogs and from us and bad attention from us is about the same thing to dogs. So if all their goal is to get your attention and they bark, they jump up, they fight each other, gets your attention, probably not the fighting part, but a lot of us trainer dogs do unwanted behaviors. Well, let's just start training them that the best way to get attention from me most consistently is to sit, lay down, come, drop the bone, go to the dog bed or whatever it is. Even drinking water. Nice. And then pet the dog after drinking water. It was like, wow, the bar is really low around here. I drink water and I'm getting a treat and some love. Yeah, but we're making them feel good about themselves because it's a positive attribute or positive action. Remember when you're petting also to try to avoid reaching over the head, pet under the chin, on the chest, on the shoulders. Also petting a slow circle on the chest can be calming for a lot of dogs. Let me see what else. So for celebrate, that's the watchword that we use for passive training. So if you see that the dog walked up to your partner and your partner missed it, you say celebrate, and that person should just stop what they're doing and say nice and pet the dog. Nice is the marker word the guardians use here. I'm going to leave them with a clicker because I think the exercise that we did in the video above would be better. Right there, you can't see it off camera, but she was asleep. She snapped her head up and looked over at me. This is a very distinct sound. So I think you're going to get better results with this. Remember to prime and load the clicker. By the time you've seen this, you should have already done that. So all you got to do is just click, give the dog a treat. Within 2 seconds, the dog doesn't have to do anything other than accept a treat. No sit, look, or whatever. Walk around your house, do this with about 15 treats. Do this maybe, I'm really talking to you guys now because by the time you see it, you should have already done this. So each one of you do it with one dog, maybe twice a day for 2 days, and then you'll never have to do it again. Then the click all of a sudden is like, holy cow, somebody's about to give me a treat. And that's great. Motivation is one of the things I asked the guardians what the dogs are motivated for, and they couldn't really tell me. And so the dogs get attention whenever they want. They get pets whenever they want. Their food is always available. So there's nothing for them to want for. And that's one of the driving purposes of all creatures on the planet is wanting shelter, wanting a partner, wanting food, or whatever it is. That is actually a good motivator for us. And when we have everything, that robs us of some of those things that help us on our life's journey. Let me see. I'm trying to think what else is there anything else you want me to cover?
I feel like that's a lot.
Yeah.
It is. I have a tendency to cover almost too much. The other thing is, I guess I forgot to mention. So these are tricky trainers. So these are, and this is a good example. This has only been out for an hour, so you can feel how much harder that one is.
Oh, yeah.
So what you can do is you can smash it. The guardians are doing a version of engage, disengage that the Humane Society showed them. So basically, if Titus looks at her, then they mark and say give him a treat. But now he's like, if she's the dog, if the camera's the dog's like, and he's looking to get that treat. So what you want to do is you can smash this one and hold it so he's looking at her. And he's chewing on it for a longer period of time while he's looking at her. Now, for counter conditioning, we really want him to look at her and then get the treat. But since he's cheating, let's start elongating it by holding out that treat and letting him nibble a little bit at a time so we can get about 3 or 5 seconds of looking. Now, 3 to 5 seconds of looking is usually okay, but if you see the dog get stiff, starts breathing heavy, the ears flip back, the pupils dilate, the tail goes up, the hair on their back goes up. Those are all, any one of those things by itself, I'm not going to be too particularly concerned, but if I start seeing a combination of those, that's usually a precursor to a fight happening. And for both dogs, when I interact with both of them, their warning was a slowing down and a brief pause by it being stiff. So if you see the dog doing that, use your positive interrupter and then give the dog a, you're gonna come over and get this one? This looks better. So
Excuse me.
now, I'm glad she did that. So she growled and the guardian said, excuse me. A growl is technically a form of aggression I've been corrected about, but I used to tell people it's just a form of communication. It's a low level. Somebody's trying to grab my butt, I'm going to growl at them in a human way and say, stop trying to grab my butt. And so we don't ever want to correct a dog for growling or showing any signs of disinterest or whatever it is. We want to try to see if we can create a positive association for that. So I might go and throw a piece of the freeze-dried beef liver on the ground. That's probably not gonna be enough, so I can throw another one. I throw one a little bit closer to her. So now I'm giving her a motivation to get up and come over and get this, and she's looking to see if she's gonna get more treats. And then I'm not saying come and get the treats. I laid these treats out. She knows they're great treats, and she wants them, but I'm being a little bit cagey, playing a little bit of hard to get. And she's looking at her guardian like, you know you want to go pick those treats up and go over and put them in my mouth, don't you? But we're not going to do that. She's going to have to earn it on her own. And when she does that, I'm going to be very passive. So when you have guests, we haven't had a lot of guests because of COVID. And I think that's actually be beneficial for her. There we go. So it was 5 pieces before she decided to get up and come over and get them. So if you have, remember, front-facing is confrontational for dogs, sideways is approachable. So if anyone wants to try to meet her, the best way for them to meet her is really going to be kind of sideways. That's, again, more approachable. You're going to eat there you go. And so I let her lick it off my hand. I did not try to pet her, and I left my hand here, and we'll see if she comes back and licks my hand a second time. Look at that. It's like I know what I'm doing. And so I was very passive. She got to sample me as much as she wanted, and I didn't go over petting her. Remember, if she doesn't want me to pet her, even though I mean the best when I'm trying to pet her, if she doesn't like it, it's going to backfire. And sometimes I'll learn to nip or bite because people just keep on trying to pet me when I flattened my ears back, I bared my teeth, I held my breath, my pupils got dilated, I got stiff, my tail went up. How many times do I have to tell you, I don't want you to pet me? And the person just pets them anyways. So the more that we can create those positive situations where she's meeting people and they're passive. You saw she just came over, and when it first came over, she was staying far away from me, but because I've been respectful of what she wants, she's a little bit more relaxed. The last little thing I'm going to talk about is something I forgot the guardian asked me about. Titus does not like going out in the backyard by himself. So what I would recommend you do is make a real positive experience for him. Maybe get some shredded cheese. Go out in the yard and sprinkle some shredded cheese, and while he's eating that shredded cheese, take one step towards your entrance, then turn around and come back to him and give him a treat that he likes. But make sure it's not so high value that he stops being interested in the cheese. So maybe a Charlie Bear. And then turn around and walk 2 steps, and then come back and give him a treat, 3 steps. And so he's still getting the grass, and every once in a while you come back, but he doesn't want to be left outside alone. So if we go inside, he's just going to forget about the cheese and come over and try to get us. So we're going to use the cheese as a little bit of an anchor to help him, give him some positive reinforcement, and help him practice us moving away. And learning us moving away is a good positive thing, because actually when they move away, that should be the happiest time of all, because that means they're about to turn around and come back and give me a treat. I'm laughing. She just stuck her self underneath a blanket, making yourself a little pillow for it. And the idea is this might take several practices rounds before you can actually walk all the way to the door, and do the same thing I mentioned. So reach for the door, come back and give him a treat. Jiggle the handle, give him back a treat. Open the door, crack. And I'm doing it very accelerated. This might take 5 or 6 practice sessions, just even walking to where the porch is. Remember, the goal is to achieve the result, not to get through it fast enough. Dogs don't generalize well. They need to practice things multiple times. And so just think about it. I have a catchphrase I'm going to say here in a second, but basically we are constantly training our dog. We're just not mindful of the fact that we're doing it. So if you're more mindful of it and you're petting your dog, when you're petting with a purpose, you're celebrating, you're doing all these little things over and over again, they really add up to a big thing. All right, let me see if I can get her back over here so we can wrap up this video. Yes, you heard that one? Yeah. She's like, you must be crazy. I just came over there. I just got comfortable under the pillows. There you go. All right. Let me think. What else? I think that's about it. Now, if you have any questions, please text me. If I don't hear from you, I assume everything's going great. You've got great resources at the Humane Society. They're doing a good job of helping you out. Just be very honest with them about where you're at with the dogs and what you're thinking. They'll adjust things based on what you're telling them. But a lot of times we feel guilty if we're not going to do a certain thing. I think that if you have a dog that is not in the right position, sometimes getting them in a different position is actually the best thing you do. Sit. Nice. Well, you want to come back over here? Let's show everybody how pretty you are. Sit. And you call her Gabby?
Gilly.
Gilly, that's right. Why do I keep on saying Gabby? Sit. So that stiffness right there. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yes. Nice, I should say. And so you saw she got up when I reached a little bit more that she was comfortable with. So sit. And I think some of your barking is a little bit of a spoiled, I want that treat. Well, this is Gilly, and this is Gilly's roadmap to success. Remember, everything you do trains your dog, only sometimes you mean it. I thought that